high-speed internet is really essential in our daily lives and essential for researchers these days. So using telepresence now, we can equip ships with the high-speed technology so that we can broadcast what we're doing and involve more people. So the National Science Foundation and the Office of Naval Research is in the process of developing new ships to replace some of the older ships. Endeavour is actually 40 years old now, so we're hopeful to replace the Endeavour in a couple of years. And this new ship will be what we call leaner and meaner. It'll be smaller, it'll hold fewer people, and it'll be equipped with all sorts of advanced technology, including telepresence. So what we're doing on the Endeavour today is really preparing us for what we're going to do in about 5 years with telepresence on ships of exploration and research ships.
Great. So as you know, hello. So on the phone we have John Bradley, and he is a U.S. retired Navy pilot, and he's going to tell to us a little bit about the U-85 wreck. 853 wreck.
Hey, John, can you hear us?
John, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Good.
Okay. You just told me I'd like to tell you my story.
Good. Do you want to introduce yourself first?
Pardon you?
Would you like to say anything else about yourself before you talk to us about your story?
Yes. Would you like me to begin?
Sure.
Okay, fine. Back on May 5th, 1945, I was assigned temporarily to Anti-Submarine Development Atlantic Fleet at Quonset Point, Rhode Island. They had a mission for me to proceed to the area south of Fisher's Island, where the U.S. Navy submarines out of Groton were training their lookouts. During those days, the submarines were diesel powered, and they had to come to the surface occasionally to recharge their batteries, so they had to train their sailors to look out for enemy aircraft. And we were then acting as a supposedly an enemy aircraft, and we'd fly out over the horizon and return, and the lookouts were supposed to spot us. We could come in either high, low, from one angle or the other, and that was our mission. We didn't have any weapons aboard or anything, just fuel in the tank. That morning, the weather was becoming very, very bad. Spotty fog all over. It was a Friday, and the submarine, at about 10 o'clock, 10:15 in the morning, I received a Morse code blinker message from the sub. We are securing operations due to weather and other reasons. We were under a strict radio silence at that time, even though World War II in Europe had ended. At that time, the German admiral had sent out a worldwide communique for all German submarines to surface and proceed to the nearest port. And the U-853 was a submarine that we have to this day no knowledge that that captain of the U-boat received the message. And at that time, however, he started making a turn away from our diesel submarines that were returning to Groton. And we headed south toward eastern tip of Long Island and then proceeded eastbound at probably about 100 to 200 foot above the water, 100 feet above the water, heading toward Block Island. My radioman Clifford Brinson, radioman third class, was the only crew I had in the Navy Avenger torpedo plane that we were using for all this type of mission. But Brinson calls me on the intercom, and he said, "Mr. Bradley, I can't believe my eyes. There's a German submarine just east of Montauk Point Rhode Island, and he's heading toward Block Island. Well, we were hoping because we didn't have any weapons aboard, we were hoping he didn't see us. And we immediately lowered our altitude just above the wave tops and proceeded back toward Quonset to report to the commander of Fleet Air, Quonset Point, our sighting. Our estimated speed of the submarine was about 10 knots, fully on the surface. Definitely a German sub, because they had a very unusual arrangement around the conning tower. It looked like a laundry basket with a pipe railing. No question about it. Well, that evening, the German submarine proceeded up to Point Judith Lighthouse area. And there had been an old coal vessel proceeding eastbound. And the submarine torpedoed that vessel and split it right in half with the torpedo. 12 lives were lost, which was tragic. We, however, this was about 10:35 or so in the morning that we sighted the vessel, the sub, and we, as I said, proceeded back toward Quonset Point. The wind was getting increasingly bad. As we came up the western passage of Narragansett Bay, the fog was halfway down the old Jamestown Bridge. We hedge-hopped up over into the fog and down again to where we had visibility, and we landed. Proceeded to the seaplane ramp area, taxied in, and then proceeded to the Admiral's office at the administration building at Quonset. It was about noon. They debriefed us. The Air Combat Information Officer quizzed us about whether we were certain it was a German sub or not. We assured him that it was. But whether by the time the debriefing ended, it was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and the fog was so bad there you couldn't even see out the window and across the street. But that was the report that we submitted to the commander of Fleet Air. On Saturday evening, my hometown was Hartford, Connecticut, and they excused my radio and I. His name was Clifford Gibson, as I said. They excused us, and I went back to Hartford that evening. Well, Saturday evening, I attended a dance at the Knights of Columbus in downtown Hartford, and during intermission in the dance, I came topside up the street level, and the Hartford Times newspaper building was right next door, and out the door of the newspaper office came the newsboys holding newspapers up over their heads, yelling, "Extra, extra, German submarine sinks coal vessel off of Point Judith, Rhode Island," and went on, and I just shook my head. I said, "Oh, my gosh." Oh, that was our part of it. And our original base was down in the Norfolk area where we had been patrolling off of Hampton Roads off the entrance to the Norfolk Navy base, night and day, looking for any possible German submarines in that area. But that's about it.
Thank you so much for talking to us. Really appreciate you calling in.
So,
right? Well,
thanks.
it's certainly my pleasure. The Providence Journal in 1985, I'm going to point that out, interviewed the captain of the Black Point, that coal vessel. He was still living at that time. And there was quite a lengthy article about his part of it. And, of course, he survived with some of the crew, but he talked lengthy about the 12 crewmen who were killed in torpedoing. But there was only one mention of a possible sighting of the German sub in that article. Now, May 2010, on the front page of one of the Sunday Providence journals, was a complete story, including mine, that we did sight the sub and reported the sighting. I don't know if the weather was too bad for destroyers to leave Newport at that time to intercept the sub. But that, in those days, was not a naval training base as it is today. It was the headquarters of the destroyer Navy for the Atlantic Fleet. And one other thing I want to point out is there's a book that came out after World War II entitled Destroyers, of World War II U.S. Navy destroyers, and there's an article in there about the Moberly and the Etherton, the two vessels, proceeded out and sunk the German sub east of Block Island, where you're now located.
Great. It was really...
Not depth charges, but hedgehogs, head-throwing weapons were my understanding, was the weapons that exploded and did the damage to sink the submarine. That's about it for now, and if you have any questions, you fire away.
Great. So we're actually running out of time to talk to you, and we have another guest waiting to come on. Thank you so much.
So right now, thank you so much, John, and that's a fascinating story. It's great to have one of the people that were actually here witnessing this German U-boat in person. Amazing. So thank you so much, John, for that commentary and that story. So as you've been watching, it's been interesting because there's a lot of action out on deck. Like I mentioned earlier, we have Professor Tom Rossby, who's about to deploy his sound source, and Shannon Donovan from Scituate High School is our teacher at sea here, and she's going to join us now and actually talk a little bit about Tom's project.
Thanks. Hi. This is going to be the second time that Dr. Rosby's team has deployed portions of their device. They changed up the setup a little bit from the previous deployment, so I'm just going to describe what's happening out on the deck right now. So this large metal cylinder that you see, you're kind of looking down the center of it right now, that's actually the sound source for this system that they have developed for tracking fish movement in the ocean. And the way it will work is that they're going to attach eventually these tiny little sensors to the fish, which will pick up a sound signal generated by a device similar to what you see on the deck there. And by having a couple of those sound sources and recording this data, they'll be able to triangulate and determine the location of these fish. So what we're working to do in the back here is to deploy the sensors, and we're actually going to keep the sound source with us attached to the ship as we transit away from these listening devices that are going to be deployed. So there is this long flag-like object. It's referred to as the high flyer, and you see that on the left there leaning up against the back rail. And that has a beacon on it so we can find it easily when we need to come back and pick it up once this experiment is completed. So that's going to be deployed off the rear of the ship, and it is tethered to a number of floats. And those are the things that look like giant fish eggs that are laying in a line there on the back there. So those are to provide some positive buoyancy for the other devices, the listening devices that will be tethered to that and suspended in the water column. So the listening devices will be dropped off the back of the ship, and they'll be floating on the surface there with that high flyer, and then we will transit away from that sound source, the listening devices, and we will deploy the sound source. It will tone periodically. The sensors will record the time at which those sounds are meet that sensor, and we'll be able to test and see if they're doing what we think they're doing.
And this is quite a bit different than the way we did the experiment about 2 nights ago, where we actually attached the cylinder and the sound source to the floats and the high flyer. and instead drove the ship away with the listening devices still on the ship. And we went periodic distances, set distances away, about 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, 30 kilometers, and then dropped the listening devices to listen to the sound source. And there was a lot of noise on the ship, so the data that they collected wasn't of the best quality. So Tom had an ingenious idea to switch it around and actually keep the sound source with the ship and deploy the listening devices on the float. So that's what we're about to do now. Tom Rossby is really the GSO scientist who has the most days at sea on the Endeavour. So he's, I don't know how many research cruises on this ship he's done or how many days at sea he's completed, but that's Tom right there. And he's overseeing the activity of deploying this high flyer and also deploying the cylinder. So we'll watch this action as it proceeds.
So it's been a really great pleasure being out here with Tom. He's not only really excited about his research still after all these years that he's been involved in this, but he's also a great teacher, and he's spent a significant amount of time with me this week telling me stories, but also giving me great ideas for the classroom. We did a demonstration on the air earlier today of resonance, and he explained exactly how this sound source works. And so inside that cylinder that you can see when we have the shot of the aft here, you notice there's like this black sphere inside that cylinder, and that is a speaker of sorts, and it is sent a signal, and it kind of vibrates or pulses at a particular frequency, and that frequency is chosen based on the resonance of that big metal cylinder, that big tube, to match that frequency, so that the tube ends up amplifying the sound that comes from that speaker so that it can be heard at great distances. So he gave me some great ideas for use in the classroom, and then we also did another demonstration where he showed very visually how sound waves are pressure waves, and it was a great activity that can be used by teachers in the classroom. And so it's really been a great opportunity to see the science in action and learn some great teaching tools.
Great, thank you, Shannon. So next we're going to talk to Dr. Ike Brennan, and he's going to come on right now.
Hi.
Hi, Mike.
Hello there.
So last night we had a dive. Would you like to talk about that and what you saw?
Oh yeah. So last night's dive, we've been trying to work on the wreck of the U853 for a couple of days now. We've had some technical issues with our ROVs and getting kind of a new ROV for us set up and ready to go. We've been experimenting with using the Endeavour, which is the first time that we've used this ship since 2006. So relearning how to maneuver it around. But we got in the water with a Seabotics ROV that we have, and we were able to. We didn't get a visual of the U-boat, but we were able to find it with the sonar. We didn't want to get it tether tangled on the conning tower of the U-boat. There's some dive buoys that are attached to that, so we didn't want to entangle the ROV. But we were able to come in. We have a Blue View multi-beam sonar on it, and we were able to get some really nice shots of the bathymetry of the U-boat. And we plan to go back there tomorrow to dive with our Falcon ROV, and we're going to dive on it to take a closer look now that we know exactly where it is.
Great. So we also were able to have a successful dive this morning. Do you want to talk about that as well?
Yeah. And so this morning we did our first successful dive with the Falcon ROV as this test using this new vehicle, and we dove on a shipwreck called the Montana. Sorry about that. And it is a schooner that sank carrying a cargo of coal in 1907. It was under tow and sank in a gale. Not quite as bad as what we're experiencing out here today. We dove on this target today because we are in kind of high winds out here. So we went to the west side of Block Island where we were quote unquote blocked by the wind, so we were there in the lee of the island diving on this wreck, and it was really cool. We got onto the bottom and were able to find the Montana wreck with our sonar on the Falcon ROV, and we came in and found first a few lumps of the coal, and then we saw what we think was the bow of the ship. We saw a bow sort of feature in the sonar, and then we saw probably the windlass that was running the anchor chain, and then a large block of what looked like some sort of cut stone. We didn't have a lot of time on the wreck, but the fact that we were able to sort of test this new system, get down to the seabed, find the wreck with the sonar, and move in towards it while maintaining our position with the ship was a great feat. So we're very excited about that, and we're excited to get back in the water tomorrow and dive on the U-53 with the Falcon ROV.
Great. So what kind of information do you try to get when you're looking at a wreck?
Yeah, so a lot of these wrecks are very well known. They're in diving depth. They're like 100 feet or so deep. So many scuba divers have been visiting them for years as recreational dive spots. Some of them have even ventured inside of the U-boat, which I would not do. That's very scary to me. But it is a very common dive site for more experienced divers. But as archaeologists, what we want to do is kind of revisit sites every couple of years. Well, maybe not every couple of years because that's quite often, but as much as we get a chance to, and kind of document how the wreck is changing over time. So, you know, when a ship sinks, it's going to eventually come into equilibrium with the environment, but parts of it are going to continue to react. So the steel's going to corrode or the wood's going to be deteriorated away. Fish and corals and sponges are going to colonize the wrecks and use them as artificial reefs. A lot of times people will sink concrete structures as reefs to support some fisheries, but shipwrecks are accidental reefs that become hard ground for these animals to inhabit. And so it's good to come back and kind of take a look at what a site looks like over the years. And another thing that we're going to be looking at is there have been documented some unexploded depth charges at the site of the U-853 from when it was being attacked by the surface ships looking for it. And I think that there's probably also some unexploded torpedoes that are still in its bow. So there are some hazards to shipwrecks, and so it's good to go back every now and then and take a look and see what the site looks like.
Great, and we have one last question. Where else in the U.S. are there a lot of wrecks that you've looked at? You've had a lot of time at sea.
Yeah, so in the U.S., we were on the exploration vessel Nautilus, where I'm an expedition leader, last year, where we were off of the mouth of the Mississippi Delta, off of Louisiana, looking at another U-boat, the U-166, which was sunk in 1942 during an attack by the German Navy on America's shoreline. They were coming to disrupt commercial shipping and shipping of equipment and supplies to Europe during World War II. So they sank a bunch of cargo ships coming out of New Orleans and Galveston in the Gulf of Mexico. And then the U-166 was sunk also by a depth charge. So we were looking at that, and there was a special produced by Nova on that expedition last year. So we have looked in a lot of the U.S. waters, and we continue to explore the maritime heritage of the United States history.
Great, so we're almost out of time, so we would like to remind you to tune in tomorrow and watch us dive at the U-853, and we're very excited about it. We would also like you to follow us along on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. There will be a whole bunch of links at the end of this program, and thank you so much for watching. And finish by watching outside, and we hope you can continue watching tonight.